Hear ye, welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rollison, also known as T-Roll, and tonight I am joined by some very good friends. Not Justin Sandoval. Sandy is not with us tonight, but we do have Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato. And here to take Justin's place, both for tonight and forever? No, probably just in one night. We'll see. A returning star, a familiar friend, a familiar voice of the Royal Geek Podcast, our good friend.
Name.
Yeah, familiar name. Our good friend, Tyler Sweat. T-Sweat, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? So glad to be here.
Welcome
glad to be
back.
Absolutely. Just always a delight, always a joy when you guys call me back up to the big leagues. I feel like I'm being called from the practice squad up to
That's it.
to the big leagues.
That's
so
it,
we
man.
got a player out, and happy to jump
you
in.
know, Justin, he scheduled a vacation with his family, so selfish.
Real selfish. Yeah.
How dare he?
And look,
really,
to do that when he knows that Loki was on the horizon.
Yeah.
He
Much-
should have known 10 months ago when they scheduled this vacation
Right.
that Marvel may have a series at some point at this point of the year.
Yeah.
There's much more important matters.
This
here
is the
for
truth
us.
is even if you try to build your vacations around Marvel, they're going to change their dates on you anyways. So
That's a great point.
It's true.
all right, before we can talk about Loki episode 5, which was titled Science/Fiction, a little bit of business. Big shout out to all of our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing the podcast with your friends. These things help us out a lot. Want to remind you to do that indeed. Share this podcast with your friends. Any Marvel friends you have, just share this link. Also, follow us on social media at Royal Geek Pod. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And thank you so much for tuning in. It has been a true joy going through Loki Season 2. Okay, let's do this. We're going to get into the episode. So spoiler warning, at this point, it's dangerous to keep listening if you haven't watched episode 5. But before we get into the specific episode, Sweat, why don't you start by just letting us know how you've been experiencing the whole season, how you've been enjoying it. I'm sure you were loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this series has kind of jumped up to the top of the list. At least like
Season 2 of Loki?
Season 2, like maybe even the whole show.
I guess the whole series itself. Yeah.
But season 2 has jumped up way, to the top of the list in comparison to what else Marvel has put out specifically on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I feel like for the first time in a long time, a show has left me like wanting more, excited about what's coming, because I feel like it's things that are happening are things that matter to the bigger picture, like things that really are going to bear some weight on the overall storyline. But also, I mean, there's a lot of factors, with Jonathan Majors stuff, and like there's a lot of things that work.
Yeah.
But
it's nice to have a guy like that on the show.
yeah, wonderful acting. All the like I've loved the journey that Loki's on. I love kind of where all these big cliffhangers have been falling and the way the story's progressing.
Yep.
I feel like their pacing in this show has been better than others that they've done, where we've gotten to this point in other shows and we're like, how are they going to wrap everything up? I feel like at this point we have about an episode worth, obviously there's still a lot to tie up, but I don't feel like there's too many unknowns.
There's not a lot. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, that I'm like, well, what are they going to do with this? What are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
I mean, right now I feel like the moment we're in is the moment we need to think about, So
Except we don't know what moment we're in.
we don't know
really.
what moment we're in.
Yeah,
We'll
right.
get to that later
because
but
of the cliffhanger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of this. I mean, there's some misses maybe, but
Yeah.
for most of it's hitting for me, and I'm just enjoying it. I really am.
That's
it's been
cool.
Great.
That's cool, man. Okay, well, I think it's time to get into episode number 5, which again is titled Science/Fiction, which to the credit of you two, right before the pod, I was like, what's this one called again? Science fiction? And I don't know which one you said it, but you're like, well, it's actually
it's
Science/Fiction.
Yeah.
And Amato is like, yeah, I think it's an important distinction that they're trying to make there. So it's cool. Really fun episode, I think. But I will admit, it is kind of a change of pace.
yeah
For sure.
So let's talk about that. Overall, this specific episode, what did you guys think of it? How'd you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it? And I guess compared to the rest of season 2, what are you thinking?
I mean, yeah, I enjoyed the episode. It definitely had a different feel to it. The biggest thing that I was a little bit off about the episode was probably like the character Sylvie, who has been to me kind of annoying like through this entire season.
Yeah.
She's just been kind of like dragging her feet, and like every single time they need something, she's just been She's been acting like she's like a 15-year-old girl, like, in her, slamming her door when her parents need something from her. Like, that's how she feels. Like, and
Yeah.
then on top of that, she's like blaming people when things go wrong, even though she doesn't help when they need the help. So that's been kind of like, that's probably the only part of the series so far that I've been like, you know what, it's been a little annoying.
Yeah. She thinks she thinks she's right about everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not willing to waver at all in that. Doesn't want to take any responsibility.
Yeah. No.
Like even if she would have just been like, I understand what I did cost others and it makes it difficult, but I believe in what I did.
Yeah.
But if instead she's like, no, I was right, everyone else is wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel you there. That has been that's been more than just this episode. But again, it's like she's got this powerful temp pad. She's got He Who Remains as temp pad,
Yeah.
which ultimately gets her out of her failing branched timeline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So she's got power. She's choosing to just not do anything with it.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of caught me most off guard because at the end of season 1, of course, she's killed He Who Remains, and then, and even at the beginning of this particular season, she had this like, I'm gonna kill this new variant that they're after, but then she just didn't do anything, and she's like, I told you if we found another variant, I was gonna kill him. So I thought she would be a little more like they're gonna be chasing her down, like what's she gonna go off and continue to mess up, kill other variants before but like she just kind of killed the one and then was like, well, I'm just gonna chill at McDonald's over here.
Yeah, it's kind
of felt weird, like a strange shift.
Yeah, and again, this whole season, it's actually pretty impressive. We're 5 episodes in.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a overarching. I mean, I guess you could say He Who Remains is still technically the villain, but this whole season 2, it's like there's not a clear. It feels like every episode there's a different pseudo villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're not a real threat.
Well,
and
you had the Renslayer and Miss Minutes, like they kind of had
For a little bit.
and they were easily taken out.
And we were led to believe in the at least maybe in the trailers and the plug for at the end of Quantumania that maybe Victor Timely would be a villain.
Right.
Clearly, we were wrong about that.
Yeah.
He turned into a hero.
Very sympathetic
Yeah.
figure.
Yes,
for
Very
sure.
much so.
which to what you were just saying, Sweat. Like she even admitted, she was like, I was gonna kill him, but then he
Yeah.
just looks so scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he kind of argues the point of, well, I haven't done the things you say that I might do.
I'm not that man.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
she's-
who
he's
you.
right.
Yeah.
But you might become that, So to where and I know we'll get to the end of this episode.
Sure.
We might end up, if Loki makes some changes to what happened, the Victor Timely may end up in a different place depending on
Yeah.
when he's jumping back into the
See,
Yeah.
to the story.
See,
I just don't know.
Here's where it gets fun with
Yeah.
T-Roll's limitations with time travel,
Yeah.
where it's like I don't, and I know we'll have some speculation in this episode review,
sure.
but how far back's he going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about this? That's probably a good transition to one of our traditions here on the podcast. Every penultimate episode, we play a little game of buy or sell.
Okay.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
That's right. Where I make somewhat of a crazy statement, and you guys will either buy it, meaning you agree, or you
Yep.
sell it, saying you disagree. I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit here for our listeners. Just be transparent. I'm not the most prepared guy for this episode, so I don't have a great list, but I'm going to come up with a couple things.
Why don't
And
you just jump back in time?
Yeah.
Write them out. And then,
do better is what you're saying? Yeah. And how about this, too? If once I get through mine, if you guys can think of one, feel free to you say it, and then the other two of us will do it as well. So, all right. This episode ends with Loki controlling his time slipping, and he goes back to what looks like the moment that Victor
Allegedly.
Timely. What do you mean?
We can talk about it in a second.
Okay. Well, nonetheless,
Yeah,
on screen,
yeah,
he
right.
goes back and
Yeah.
he time slips, if you
Yes.
will, within the TVA once again.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do want to talk about why that's even happening again, but I guess we'll get there.
Yeah.
But it ends in that moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like where Victor Timely was walking down the stairs, where they're in the temporal aura room or
The
whatever.
observation
Yeah.
deck or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, buy or sell. Loki's not actually going there. He's going to go further back, and he's going to go all the way back to the Citadel at the end of season 1 and deal with He Who Remains again.
That is a very interesting
It's a
idea.
good theory.
I like it. I'm going to sell it. Though.
Yeah.
Sell it. Okay.
I think I'm going to sell as well because I think if that's where he was going to go, that's where he would have gone. If he's controlling himself, like
Yeah.
if he's able to really direct where he wants to be, then I think he would have just popped there first, unless he had to gather some information
Sure,
or some
okay.
item from that particular time. He could go. I mean, I think we're going to see more jumping.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's going to go that far back.
Okay, that's fair, man. It's good I don't have a long list because I'm really eager to get into our conversation about the time slipping.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one. It's about He Remains. He Who Remains will be in this episode or in the finale. Not Victor Timely.
Mm-hmm.
He Who Remains could be a flashback. Could be him showing up somehow. Because again, like he's in different branches of time. He has that same powerful temp pad.
Yeah.
Buy or sell. We're going to see He Who Remains.
I think we're going. I think we will see a version of He Who Remains. I don't know if we'll see the exact same, because I think there's going to be a new person who remains. I think, but I don't think it's going to be the original Jonathan Majors He Who Remains.
Okay.
I think it will be someone who's taken over for that one.
I'll buy that. We'll see actual He Who Remains.
Ah, okay. Well, then that might affect the next one I'm going to say. I'm on.
All right.
Buy or sell. We will get a different Kang variant. Not He Who Remains, not Victor Timely.
I think I'll buy that. I think we're going to get at least one other version of Kang that's going to need to be.
You think so?
Fought,
In
yeah.
the finale.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll sell that.
You're going to sell it. I'm leaning towards selling too, even though I said I made a statement.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If it happens, Sweat, do you think
Yeah.
it'll be in the episode or in the post-credit scene?
That's a good question. I mean, I would like to see, because I think what I've most wanted to see is that unraveling of the Council of Kang, like we saw at the end of Ant-Man Quantumania. I want to see
Yeah.
like multiple start dropping in and
I know.
realizing how that interaction is gonna what's gonna happen there, because up to this point we've had three. We've had He Who Remains, and we've had Kang and Ant-Man,
Yeah.
and, Quantumania, and then we've had Victor Timely. And they've all kind of been three different properties, and they've all died on screen that we've seen so far.
You mean three that have been like a focal point
A focal
outside of
point.
that post-credit
outside of
scene.
the outside. That have been a story.
Because there was quite a
point.
lot in that shot.
There was thousands, millions,
yeah,
maybe. Yeah. As far as like a part of the focal
Yeah.
point of the story.
Right.
I think at this point, I don't know if we're gonna have. I don't know if we're gonna have another Kang as He Who Remains, though. I think there's something bigger happening.
Yeah, because in one
Potentially.
sense, if you think about it, at the end of episode 6 of season 1, the finale,
Mm-hmm.
when we meet He Who Remains, he has this whole big spiel about all these dangerous variants are going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're nervous about it.
Yeah.
And in fairness, we see them. We see Kang the Conqueror in Quantumania, and then we see the Council, the arena of Kangs, if you will.
Yeah.
So we see some other powerful Kang variants. But aside from Victor Timely, who was very unassuming, didn't know anything. If anything, he seemed like he had a kind heart. Aside
Yeah.
from Victor Timely, we haven't seen what He
Yeah.
Who Remains was warning Loki and
Yeah.
like Loki has yet to meet another variant. Sylvie has yet to meet another variant that was dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am yearning for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because I just don't know when that would happen again. Like unless there's going to be a season 3.
Here we go.
Don't. No,
I mean,
okay.
I would
sorry.
hope it would be in an end credit.
End
at
credit,
the very
probably,
least, because
yeah.
I feel like to introduce and
Secret Wars
create-
is coming, right? Like we're
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's certainly going to be the focal point. I mean, and actually before that, hello, I'm an idiot. Kang Dynasty
Kang,
is
yeah.
Yeah.
before that. So
Yeah. Barring the potential time slips of release dates that are going to
yeah, there you go.
endlessly move into the future.
How about this? Buy or sell? There will be a season 3 of Loki.
I hope so. I doubt
You
there
can't
will
buy
be.
it though, huh?
I'll buy it.
Ooh, you think so?
Okay, yeah. I might have to sell it. I don't think I think they're going to like wrap up what this particular like. Either the TVA is going to crumble and it's
Okay.
not going to be
It's
rebuilt.
done. Yeah.
It's done. Or there's already some stuff happening in this like fail set. I think, and we'll get into the actual episode.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Okay.
I think either what we're about to see is the irreversible damage of that whole system and just the unleashing of the Kang problem.
Yeah.
Or
The Kang problem.
there's going to be something else that
Okay.
we'll talk about later.
Amato, you're buying it. Tell me why. Give me hope, Amato.
I mean, from the most cynical point of view, Marvel needs wins when it comes to their Disney Plus series.
And this has been a win.
This has been one of the few that has actually hit
Yeah, good point.
multiple times. It's shown that a lot of their series have been just kind of meh.
Yeah, fair. So fair.
You know, so I think until they have something else to like hang their hat on or really feel good about, I mean, they're probably going to try to milk Loki for as much as they can.
Yeah. And trust me, I'm okay with it because, again, when I think about the fact that there needs to be more about Kang to lead up to the Kang Dynasty movie, which, again, we don't know exactly when that will be.
Yeah, and I think there's still a lot up in the air with the pending trial. With
Yes.
Johnson, and I don't want to get into all
No,
that
we
probably,
don't.
but
Yeah, we're not going to get into it, but
Yeah.
it does seem like it's so much of it has calmed down.
yeah,
Makes me feel like I guess I'm hopeful that because I do like Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that. Oh wow, my. You guys ever have Alexa just start saying things
yeah.
randomly? And
She
you're
wants
like,
to talk on the pod. She's got some ideas.
So I don't know if our listeners can hear Alexa talking in the background, but it is very freaky.
Miss Minutes? Is that,
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah. She wants to get her opinion told.
Dude. That Miss Minutes has been crazy this season. Okay. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is it feels like King Dynasty is a long ways away still.
Yeah.
You know, I could see it being a 2026 movie, maybe 2027. I don't know how far back it's going to go.
Yeah.
Plus with everything with the writers and the actors strikes.
Yeah.
It makes me think that, man, it would serve Marvel really well. Normally you can be pretty critical when a company like milks a product too long, but I feel like with Tom Hiddleston, with Loki, and you know what? Isn't it confirmed that Mobius and maybe I guess the TVA is going to be a part of the
Daredevil. Daredevil.
We both messed up right
gosh.
there.
Goodness gracious.
Deadpool.
Yeah.
Said
Deadpool 3.
Daredevil.
Is that confirmed?
Yeah. Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Well, we know that they're in the void, and that the TVA is going to be a part of it. So
that really does make me think that the TVA is going to survive this somehow.
yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, I'm really hopeful for season 3, Amato. So I really hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Not our greatest buy or sell segment, but that's all right. I want to get into episode 5.
Yeah.
And I do want to say for our true listeners out there, our true fans, another surprise, not surprise, but another. We haven't done this all season. I do have some Ryan's rants later.
Hey.
Yeah.
We did hear from our buddy Ryan. He actually was not pleased with this episode at all.
Man.
And there's some valid points he makes.
Okay.
I would disagree with a good bit of it, though. So I'm excited when we get there. But let's talk about this right now. In fact, one of the things that Ryan mentioned, which I can share later, is the time slipping.
Yeah.
He's like, why is Loki the only one who's time slipping? It doesn't make any sense. I have a theory on this, but I want to start with you guys.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure why he is the only one who is time slipping. It might have to just do with the fact that he is.
The show's called Loki.
Yep.
I mean, he's the
got
main
his name in the
character,
title.
and maybe he is the one from the sacred timeline. Like he is. So like the fact that he's the Loki from the sacred timeline gives him that ability to, jump between branches.
Technically, he was from a branched timeline from when he took the cube.
But I'm
that
just saying
became a branched.
maybe he actually is
That's why he was-
somehow from the sacred
maybe.
timeline.
Hear your theory.
So I think this gets into a little bit of what I was alluding to earlier. Of I think Loki is playing a bigger part than we're realizing right now. That there's a future, potentially, either a version of Loki or this same Loki that's impacting events of the past via
Which we've seen so far.
we've seen this already happening. But I think he's going to end up with that master temp pad,
The one that Sylvie's got?
the one that Sylvie's got, and he is placing himself where he needs to be in order to create the eventual conditions of so I think he's basically dragging him. That's why I was saying I don't think he now is exactly controlling his time slipping, but he's dragging himself around. That's why he ends up exactly in the moments where he needs to be with the people he's trying to find.
I mean, we do have currently a missing temp pad.
Right. The one that
The one that OB created.
We're led to believe that it's spaghettified, though, aren't we? That's how I interpreted that.
Potentially,
scene.
yeah, that it was starting to dissipate.
Everything else right after that moment started to.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Because you assume it's Casey, and then Casey gets spaghettified. You're
yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
okay, maybe.
Okay, well, maybe it's all falling apart. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just what I think that there's some other puppet master moving the strings to get Loki specifically where he needs to be for these particular moments. Because
Do you
even
think there's someone or something controlling our Loki,
yes,
his time slipping?
yeah,
He's saying like a Loki further down the timeline is like
pulling him from
pulling
place.
himself,
Like
pushing.
another Loki who's sitting at the Citadel, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
like so. I think our Loki ends up as the He Who Remains, because that was He Who Remains' original plan, was to hand it off to
That is true.
Loki or Sylvie.
Yeah.
And I think he realizes his ultimate fate as, okay, I've got to manage this thing. So he's now trying to create the conditions to get himself back to that.
That's interesting.
Point,
I would have
yeah.
never even.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah.
So here's my theory, and I did respond to my buddy Ryan about this. I think there is one clear reason that Loki is time slipping. I hope I'm right, and I hope you guys agree with me. But if I'm not, if there's flaw in my logic, show me. So season 1 finale, Loki and Sylvie are at the Citadel. He who remains his tower. They're fighting about what to do. Sylvie grabs the temp pad, pushes him through it. So she controls that door, that particular door. But I'm led to believe that, like, how does she know exactly where she's pushing him? We now know, and the way season 1 starts, that he goes back in time in the TVA, which we're led to believe is impossible. So he's time traveling within the TVA because of what Sylvie did from the Citadel, which was He Who Remains is like, fortress at the void at the end of time or outside of time or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, Sylvie's also there, so you could be like, well, why isn't Sylvie time slipping? Well, my theory is she grabs that master temp pad. She decides to go to a branch timeline. She's not going to the TVA.
Right.
She's just doing normal time hopping.
Yeah.
But Loki is doing something that nobody has ever done, is how I interpreted that. As far as we know.
Yeah. There might be something to that, like if maybe she didn't know how to use that ultimate temp
Where
pad.
she was pushing him.
Yeah, that like if you're sending someone back to the TVA, then does it automatically from that particular point? If that itself is separate, because at the end of episode or at the beginning of end of season 1, goodness gracious, they end up having to go through the void, face the Goliath, and then get to the Citadel through that means. So there is not like necessarily a direct point of contact between the Citadel and the TVA. So
I mean, that's an interesting idea. Is like kind of like she's almost pushing through something that shouldn't be, possible. But sometimes you push something hard enough, it'll go through. It won't be the same shape or the same like. It won't work properly, but you push it hard enough, sometimes it'll go through.
Well, also, we had reached the end of the script, as it were, that the He Who Remains had written.
True.
The thing that he had understood would come to be. So we were in kind of a chaotic, unknown,
No man's land.
Yeah, there's no and so I think that's a valid point. That,
And it's like at some point, like, so we see in season 2 when He Who Remains is with Renslayer and she goes back to the TVA. You could say, well, isn't that her going back in time? But we don't know. We don't know where she landed within the TVA. And then they get their memories wiped. There's just something that seems a little chaotic about Sylvie, first time using this thing, picks it up, push it. She's really just trying to get him out of there. So she's like, go to the TVA, be gone, right?
Yeah,
and
maybe she didn't think about like a time. Like she,
that's
like
what
she
I'm
was just
saying.
like TVA. She wasn't thinking of a time. So literally, he sent like just the TVA, and it can be split over like decade.
Right.
Yeah.
So
dozens of
it's
times.
literally time within the TVA. We see in episode 1, OB says, "Yeah, that's time slipping," and he said that's impossible in the
Shouldn't be
TVA,
possible,
but
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and how they solved it originally was that they had to latch on to his temporal aura.
through the loom, and they pull him out of it.
Right.
But then the loom, are we led to believe at the end of episode 4 last week that it's maybe the Lubins are destroyed, but they weren't able to. They failed at what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
So
it
it
overloaded
starts
to
to- it
some
overload,
extent.
So I almost feel like it kind of reverts Loki back, like our Loki. Now he has the same problem that he did because of that.
Right.
The temporal loom did not fix the
Yeah.
problem.
Well, yeah. So this kind of gets us to, I guess, the beginning of the episode where, like, obviously we open up on the same moment.
Same, yeah.
He kind of closes his eyes and then opens them again, and
It's in the same room, but is it the same
yeah.
moment? I
So,
don't know.
Because that's what confused me. Because if you look at the loom at the end of episode 4,
Yeah,
much
it's-
more chaotic,
going nuts.
exploding, but then at the beginning of episode 5, it's actually kind of more controlled. So what potentially, the all the systems within the TVA were going into this. We saw on the screen a fail-safe mode. So
Yeah.
like some sort of like
Control Alt Delete.
yeah, something that was gonna like just put everything on pause, fix the bugs, wipe out. And I'm assuming that's why like people were not there. Like all the employees were gone. All the
Well,
the
what
other
I
systems
well,
were
what
gone.
I actually
Well,
think happened was
And Amato called this
Yeah.
last week.
Okay.
So.
Oh, yeah.
was when it overloaded or whatever it did, it hit everyone and it just split them into branches. So like that's why OB was where he was. That's why Mobius was where he was. I think
And
what
they
happened
weren't
is-
on the sacred timeline. They were
No.
They were on branch
branched
time.
timeline.
But
Yes.
so I think that's where they were originally taken from. I believe like they sent them back to where they were harvested from.
No, I agree with that.
as because they were taken from branch
But
timelines.
they did it. But it specifically identifies it as branch.
Right.
Oh, you're saying that the guys that we know in the TVA
Were taken
never
originally
taken from the
sacred
from the
sacred
sacred
timeline.
timeline. Yeah, they were taken from branch
So,
timelines.
so for example, Mobius, who is Don in the sacred timeline, he's still there,
yeah,
but our Mobius was from a branch timeline,
right. And so
Which
I think
almost, if I was He Who Remains, that feels like the moral thing to do.
Well, it's also like I mean,
yeah.
if you're just thinking about the idea of what a variant is by definition
True,
is
true.
something that is not off of the sacred timeline.
That's right, just like Loki in
Yeah.
1/1.
Yeah. So like it would
Okay.
have to be something from a branch timeline if you're pulling a
Yeah,
variant.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, then this gets in the question: is if that's true, if the TVA like goes into this mode where they send all their variants back, and it kind of feels like they're just hitting reset on the TVA. So they
Yeah.
send all the variants back, and you reset the TVA. That's why Loki's he's a little different.
yeah,
And Sylvie's definitely different, which we get to later. So does that mean that Sylvie? Do you guys think that she just got sent back to her branch, or do you think she was like, "I'm getting out of here"? She pressed the temp pad and bailed.
I think she might have bailed.
I think so, too.
Because I think for everyone else, it was just all the TVA employees.
Yeah.
were sent back.
Yeah.
I don't think we're led to believe there were any other variants.
Well,
that had been
also
arrested
like
at the
okay, so you
time,
think
know?
about it. If she was actually sent, she wouldn't be sent to that timeline because she chose that timeline.
You're right,
Yeah,
dude.
So, like-
so
she
she
just
dipped.
wanted those McNuggets.
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't blame her.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Man,
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba,
Sylvie's
you know what I'm
turned
saying?
into a little withdrawing, little passive, scared.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I mean,
I think she's lost as
Yeah.
a character.
Yeah.
Like I think that's like one of her biggest things is she has had this like mission for so long.
Yeah.
it was over.
And
It makes
she-
sense.
yeah.
I mean, she was taken as a child, and her whole life, like I said, her whole life mission was first of all jumping around from branch to branch, trying not to be caught.
Yep.
But then once she knew there was a way to get the guy at the top,
Yeah.
she got him, and then was like, "Well, now what?
Yeah.
Now-
What do you do? What do
Yeah.
you do now?
What do you do when you finally get vengeance?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
It's-
also, yeah. It's like that idea of like when someone retires and then they just like die like a year later, and it's like they lost their will to live almost. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of where she's at.
Yeah.
Is she just like, and I think that's why she doesn't want to go back on any of it because she doesn't like she's completed her task. She
Wow.
does not want to be a part of anything anymore.
Wow. How about that? Okay. Well, so nonetheless, Loki is time slipping all over the place. And it does seem, and this gets, I almost want to get into a little bit of Ryan's rants here. This gets into what Ryan was kind of complaining about. Some of this just feels convenient. And this is a little bit of my issue with time travel stuff all the time, where it can just feel so convenient, right? Ryan actually posted, he sent me like a fake dialogue about being in the Marvel writing room, and he's like, all right, so that was cool. The multiverse is spaghetti. We got 2 episodes left. Now what? Another guy says, oh, shoot. Didn't think about that. Well, looks like we need to go back in time. Okay, but how? I know. Loki can time slip again. Which, again, I think that's because the temporal aura is kind of messed up. Or the temporal loom.
Yeah.
So that's why I disagree with Ryan a little bit. But it is convenient that he is, at least for the plot point, he's time slipping to where everyone is in their branched timelines.
Yeah.
Well, I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
You think
because
so?
he's like, it's kind of like the idea. So anytime someone like develops a superpower, like the idea is that you start with something small.
Yeah.
Like you don't start by, like if you're doing it well in general, you don't start by someone flying. You start with someone leaping, really high or something like that. If you're doing that, if you're going super fast, it's like you start doing, you get really fast and then you get super speed. If you're doing time travel, you don't jump. Lots of times you don't jump, to exotic points. You jump to 15 feet away or 10 seconds ago.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of what's happening is like in these moments that it's these things that he's connected to. And OB states
makes
that,
his point. Yeah.
that he's going to like these auras that he's connected to. Like they specifically state like this from this moment in time where they were at the loom.
Yeah.
He's specifically connected to these
Yeah.
auras.
For what it's worth, and I'm anxious to hear the rest of Ryan's rants.
Yeah.
I think this show has done the best at providing logic for the things they do. Like, they didn't just leave that and be like, well, he just time slips now. Like, they had explanations for, and
That's
I think,
fair, yeah.
And I think that's part of to say, sorry, Ryan, like, the name of the episode kind of tells you what they're going after. Like,
Yes,
they're
science
splitting science from
and
fiction,
fiction, right.
And,
Well,
and
OB says that.
and he's saying like, look, we're in the fiction right now. Like we're enjoying the story, and of course, like the way we'll get to the ending. But I think that's what I've been most impressed by, because usually when you get in these like time travel scenarios, they're just kind of things are taken for granted.
Yeah.
But actually, in this episode, I think that they did a pretty good job explaining their logic.
And I think it's also kind of they're doing a callback all the way to the first Thor movie, in my mind, with the idea of science/fiction, because Thor explains science is just kind of magic
and science
as-
we haven't understood yet, right?
So, and I think they're getting at that same idea, like that thread of the idea of fiction is just something is science you don't understand yet.
Yeah.
Like kind of like that idea is kind of like the fiction side of it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and I love that kind of dialogue with Obi and Loki, where it's like Obi's thinking about fiction and Loki's like, okay, but let's try that. Let's try science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, he's like, all right, can science help us? And it makes me think of Ragnarok, where Thor's like, use one of your PhDs. It's like, just doesn't understand. Like, just use science. Just
Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ryan does say, he's kind of frustrated about the time slipping. Isn't it kind of random? Just he goes where he needs to be. One writer says he's going to learn how to control it. Okay, so then he can just time travel whenever he wants to. Yep. So doesn't that make even less sense than what we did in Endgame? I'm assuming he means by the time travel in Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He'll go see OB, Mobius, B-15, Casey, and Sylvie on their timelines, and then everyone will be in their feels, and they'll overlook it. I think he was really critical, Ryan, of like the emotional stuff. Loki wanting to be with his friends.
Yeah.
I kind of liked that pulse.
Yeah.
Because it does make you wonder, like, why has this anti-hero Loki variant, who his entire life has been selfish, why is he all of a sudden now wanting to save everything?
Yeah.
And I think when they're at that bar and Sylvie's digging at him, like, I actually liked that.
Yeah.
But again, Ryan, he was ranting about it.
Yes.
Anyways, so he'll go to them, learn to control his time slipping. No, he'll time slip to all his friends randomly. It'll be the power of love that makes him go there. Okay, so if Loki loves people, he time travels there? Exactly. Why can Loki do that and no one else? Again, this is me saying.
Yeah.
Talked about that. I think there's something unique about what happened to Loki when he was at the void at the end of time, where it caused him to be able to time slip. But I will admit, and this gets what your theory, Sweat, where it's like, is he really controlling? They had this whole moment where it looks like he's controlling it at the end when everything's getting spaghettified.
Yeah.
That kind of felt trippy. But anyways, I'm gonna continue with Ryan's rants, and he says, "No, that's not important. So how is he going to get all of his friends back together to save the world? They can't just time travel like he can. He'll time slip to OB from another timeline and give him the TVA book, and he's going to be able to make a temp pad time machine." This did feel a little convenient to me,
Yeah.
where
yeah.
it's like, okay, so in 1994 he gets this TVA guidebook, and he's able to. And I do like they gave us. I do like that they gave us an exact answer to how long it took him.
Yeah. Because like for us, it was a few minutes or like a
For
couple
him, it was
hours,
18
and then it was
months,
18.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was really 19
That's
because
cool.
of his wife leaving him,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
a great line.
Yeah, I really will. And I think, you almost have to, I guess, like I said, some things you do have to just take because for that argument, then how was
Yeah.
Victor Timely able to create all the stuff he was able to do
Exactly.
in his time
It's
in the 30s? Like,
the
it's-
30s before night. No, it was like the 1800s still.
Yeah.
Or the 18, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
even worse.
like it was like 1890s.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, exactly. So, won't that take a long time? And this is Ryan. He says, "No, this is Rance." Again, this is all in the writers' room. No, it'll be instant, but it'll be 18 months for OB because time works different in the different places. Like in Interstellar.
I mean, that's a pretty obvious like time travel. You use the
You have
use
to-
the temp
Yeah.
pad.
You go to
Yeah.
a different time, then it's going to
Yeah.
be someone else is not jumping with you.
Yeah,
He's-
and so here, listen to this. Though. He says, "Well, then how will OB find Loki again after he builds the temp pad?" Well, with the temp pad. Oh, so the temp pad that he builds in 18 months will just know where everyone is at all times, and you can go there? Isn't the TVA gone? I thought that was what the TVA. I thought that was a TVA thing, and that is a little bit. Tell me what you guys think there. That is a good point. OB in 1994 creates this temp pad. So by 1995, roughly, at some point that year, he's able to get all the way up to 2022. I think where is that where OB was? Yeah, I think 2022. Or sorry, no, Mobius, Dawn. Like, how did OB know exactly where Loki was?
Yeah.
It's little things
Yeah.
like that that I
Yeah.
will be
I will
like,
say like that's a little like
little
okay.
convenient. I feel Ryan. That's why some of his
maybe,
rants.
Maybe he told him. He's like, I'm going to visit this guy.
Yeah.
I'll be
Suspension of
jumping to
disbelief.
these times because we did miss a lot
because he did already
of the
because he
explanation.
ran to Mobius first,
Yeah.
right? So or
No,
Was it-
Casey. It's Casey.
Casey, but he
Yeah.
went to Mobius before he went to OB, didn't he?
First. I think he went to OB
slipped
last.
to all of them,
Yeah.
and then he went to OB last.
Because then he's like, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe, and then we jump a lot of the dialogue.
So
there.
basically, like all I got
He
to be
might
is
have
like,
given
hey,
everything.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
be here. I'm seeing Mobius in 2009, I think is what it was.
yeah,
This time period, this place.
Now, how did
Show
he
up.
know that? Because he was only there for like 2 minutes.
that's what I'm saying. So there
Yeah,
is a little.
there are
I
things.
think there are things.
There are things,
and
yeah.
I feel like what I've had to do as a fan is
Suspension of disbelief.
time travel is so confusing already. Like, there's some things where I have to be able to turn my mind off.
Yeah.
If I could be maybe a little critical of my very good friend Ryan, I think it's a little more difficult for him to turn his mind off for something like this, especially when he thinks if they're being like overly emotional, which again I don't necessarily agree with that, but if he thinks they're being like overly emotional, it's the power of love and friendship that's binding everything together in the universe. I guess they're getting into that a little bit with Loki here,
Yeah.
where he's just thinking, man, let's just move along with the plot.
Yeah.
But in my mind, they were moving along with the plot.
Yeah.
Now, did you need to spend a whole episode doing this? Maybe not. But what I'm led to believe is Loki has somehow magically figured out how to control his time slipping, which Sweat doesn't agree with. He says he thinks someone else is controlling it.
Yeah.
Which, if that's true, then Ryan will probably feel relieved if that's true.
If there's something like pulling him from place to
if
place.
there's a scientific reason,
Right.
Yeah.
not a
right.
fiction reason,
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I think so, and we might find out that that's not the case. But I think there was something else distinct about the end time slipping than the beginning, because at the beginning, although yes, it was very random, he would jump into a new place as a different body. So like we saw that first when he was still in the TVA, and he jumped to that same time where he's grabbing the book and he says hello to himself.
Yeah, that was weird.
At the end, he jumps back into his own self in a moment. So, like, I don't know if there's something so he comes back to a moment. Like his consciousness reverts back to his former self in that moment. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't disappear and then
Wow.
show back up.
See, now
You know what
you're
I mean?
really sweat. Now you're really messing with me, man.
Yeah.
Is that actually how? Is that how that
It's-
happened?
I think so. It's because it's portrayed in a way that like he doesn't show up as a second form of himself in the room with everyone there, right? When he shows back up in the room where they're all together and
That we know of.
we know of.
We
like,
know of. I mean,
Yeah.
technically, you don't see. Do you see Victor Timely walk down the stairs at the end of this episode?
No, you just kind of see him and OB standing next to each other.
Yeah.
But I mean back when he shows back up to all the Dawn and that he's collected there, and he
Yeah.
tells them that like I did it. When he has that realization, and then he sees all of them slip away.
Oh, I guess you're right.
Right.
He did. You're right. Yeah,
He
there
didn't-
wasn't a second Loki in that room.
Right. So he reverted back to himself in that moment rather than jumping in and saying, "Hey guys, and myself, here's what you're gonna,"
Give me that temp pad
me
before
that temp pad.
spaghettifies.
Right.
I was waiting for him to say that, but
Yeah.
but now,
Maybe,
but
yeah.
here's the thing: if he can time slip,
Yeah.
who needs a temp pad?
Right. Yeah.
Dude, my head right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or why
y'all-
not just
y'all
jump
gotta
back to
help
the
me.
Battle of
Yeah.
New York and win it? You know?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Ryan
Mm.
did say, "What couldn't we just use a temp pad to go back in time and save the world instead of the whole Loki time slipping thing?" Maybe.
Maybe.
If Obi is able to create this temp pad in 18 months, couldn't he just then?
Yeah, but they never used the temp pad after that moment to go back to the TVA. Only his time slipping was what created that connection.
It must be
There.
something that about the auras of these people, which again
Yeah.
is another weird. I
Yeah,
don't
there's
know.
like a stamp.
This
of
is the
their-
science
yeah.
part of the science fiction
slash fiction.
Slash
yeah,
fiction, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what the heck? Let's talk about the ending. What's going to happen?
I do. Okay, before we go to the ending,
Yeah.
can we just talk about? I want to say how visually stunning the spaghettification stuff was.
Dude, especially in the record store.
Yes,
Yeah.
that whole sequence was awesome. Like when he's pouring the coffee and like I guess there was no cup there all of a sudden, but now it's like flowing and then turns into strings and the record. I just want to mention like all of those visuals because I mean, of course, we saw like Victor Timely and his whole like body rip apart, which is terrifying.
Oh,
but it was
gosh,
kind
yeah.
of like I don't know. I love the way they displayed it. Of like,
Yeah.
okay, we see this reality unraveling.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was really cool. The record was like floating. It was very visually appealing. I liked.
And for me, I got some serious like flashbacks to Infinity War with the
Yeah,
dusting. It
right.
felt like dusting.
That's
Everybody
like-
was getting dusted.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
It's
they're
the
all
same kind of
panicking.
vibe,
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Very chilling.
Just Mobius is like, I got to go see my boys. And, B-15, she's like, is this it?
Is this how it is? Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's just everyone's just panicking. It's
Yeah.
and even Sylvie, and that was interesting too. I for a second I thought Sylvie wasn't gonna get spaghettified, and she did. So again, this is kudos to Marvel. Where I'm like, oh my god, is now Loki gonna get spaghettified if Sylvie just did?
Yeah.
So, but then of course he turns into being able to either magically control his time slipping or someone's controlling
Yeah.
him. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
more on that later.
Right.
Speculation, boys. What the bleep is going to happen in the finale? And Amano, you were right last week, so I definitely want you to go first.
So, okay, so my idea will be potentially that maybe he takes over for Timely and he goes himself, Loki, because they were kind of like they were arguing over who should
Yeah, yeah.
go, and like maybe Loki will come to this realization that he needs to be the one that goes.
I think there is still some trailer footage that like we haven't seen in the show yet of him walking down without a suit on, walking down that.
I hate those
Yeah.
kind of trailers.
So, but anyway, like I feel like that's kind of what's going to end up happening because they kind of already laid the groundwork for like the idea of like them arguing over who's going to go, and I think this time he may push, especially because he knows that whatever happens if Timely goes down, that it's not going to work. So he has to think like, what do I need to do to? And they were kind of like laying the groundwork in this whole episode about the idea of friendship and like him making that sacrifice would be like the ultimate display of his growth and like his sacrifice to friendship.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm still curious of what his revelation was of if he is controlling the time slipping. You know, he mentions it's not the why or the how or the when, it's the who. And so I don't know if that, like, who was he thinking of in that? Was it Sylvie?
This is
Was
the
it
fiction part of the science.
Moby?
/fiction.
Yeah. Was it what's
Yeah.
driving him? Was it himself because he's Loki?
He
He's got to be
who
selfish.
remains.
He who? Yeah. There you go.
Ooh.
So
Nice.
like the who's he focusing on? And maybe
Yeah.
it's that he's saying like, okay, it's not the if he ends up being the one that goes down that platform. My only thing is like, okay, if he gets there, solves that issue, I don't think we're gonna have a perfect resolution to the problem because there's still got to be a problem to build upon, right? There's got, or else we've ended up in yet another example of, okay, we're waiting for what's going to be the multiverse kickoff, and here we have another perfect opportunity for them to do that. But each show has to have the tight, neat bow, or maybe we'll get another dreadfully awesome cliffhanger that will.
Again,
you know,
if we get a cliffhanger that sets us up for season 3, Marvel, give it to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. In 2028 or whenever it's going to be.
Yeah, that's fine. I can wait for it. I mean, I think, yeah, man, I don't know because now I'm thinking. I mentioned earlier, I think in Buy or Sell, where it's like he's gonna time slip back to the Citadel. But now I'm thinking, is that possible? Because again, if my whole theory was that he is time slipping because of the way he got sent out of the Citadel back to the TVA. Can he just like make himself go to the Citadel in that moment and do something before Loki and Sylvie shows up? Because I do think it would be cool. He Who Remains knows everything up to a certain point. What if a different Loki from the future, before the Loki and Sylvie that show up in the finale of season 1, it would be cool to see He Who Remains actually freak out because he's so cool and collected.
Yeah.
Where if he's like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
That would actually be pretty sweet. So that's why there's a part of me that hopes he does that.
Yeah.
However, I do think what you guys are saying is more likely that there's just going to be a scene where they're gonna solve the problem that they were trying to fix to save the TVA in that moment.
Yeah.
But
Somehow they either have to decide if they're going to let the branches branch, because that was the kind of the beginning of the season, the motivation of, okay,
Dude,
are
I
these
know.
people, are we going to let them
or
die?
you do genocide and
Yeah.
dude,
Matt, like,
again, it's a big moral
yeah,
kind of
what
conversation.
do
But
they
if you let them
leave it?
branch, they spaghettify.
But wasn't
Is-
the entire
I
like?
think that's only
If
because
they
of the
don't
loom.
control the temporal
Yeah,
loom.
if the
yeah.
loom
Okay.
doesn't work out.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think what they'll just end up doing is they'll end up fixing the loom's capacity issue, which was what they were trying to do in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
To where
And these branches
so many
can-
branches can
Yeah,
coincide.
these branches now can, essentially, it'll, instead of it being 3 inches across, it'll be 5 inches across, and now like a lot more branches can go through, and it won't overload the capacity of the loom.
Wow, fascinating. Gosh. I love this show. It's been so good. I mean, season 1 was phenomenal. Season 1 was always my favorite show. And now you add season 2 to it. It's like Loki is just far and away, hands down. Nothing. I mean, WandaVision was great. Some other shows
Yeah.
were okay. Nothing comes close.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
big thanks to Marvel. I hope they. And I do have faith that the finale will be, good. Even though I'm yawning over here. It's been a long week.
yeah.
But I think it'll be good. So, last thoughts from you guys before we close shop.
Man, I'm ready for a slam dunk. I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. They've let me down before, but I don't think they
Remember
will this
Hawkeye?
time.
We were talking about Hawkeye being one of the best shows
Yeah,
for 5 episodes, and then the finale
And then
shows
just,
up, and it was
what the heck?
garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot will be determined by what they allow, because I mean it's got to be a whole episode's worth of stuff that's got to happen, right? So his slipping to this particular moment wherever we left him,
Yeah.
something's got to generate a whole episode's worth of story to tell. So I just don't know what to expect of that next something, which I think is what's got me so excited. Because it was the same from last week to this week. Didn't know where they were going to go. I mean, things are exploding, timelines, like what's going to happen. So I think I'm going to leave it in their capable hands, and trust them.
It's good.
Yeah.
Shimano.
Yeah. Just a real quick shout out to like the historical reference that they made with the breakout of Casey.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
Alcatraz breakout.
yeah.
I love that, and because in the
Frank,
last season they
right.
did the USS Eldridge, which was a really cool idea. And they're both like big mystery type of things, like
Yeah.
what happened to these people.
And there was another one. Loki was the person on the plane. That,
That he was DB Cooper.
DB Cooper. Yeah. So, and this was like a famous set of 3 guys that escaped
Yes.
Alcatraz, but they've never found.
But they were never seen again
Yeah.
by anyone that can really verify what actually happened.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Makes you wonder if they ever if they got away and just lived a life of peace. You know.
Yeah. Well, at least
Yeah.
one of them was taken to the TVA, so
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Well,
right.
we don't know if he got taken to the TVA.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Sweat, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah,
Good to have
definitely
you
glad
back.
to.
We'll definitely have you again for a good guest appearance at some point.
For sure.
Sandy, I know you're listening to this because you are a faithful podcast listener. We miss you. We'll see you next week. To all of our listeners, one more week of Loki. So next week, please join us again for the finale. We are very excited for it. And the Marvels movie is just like, it's next week as well, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, we're going to watch. Holy smokes. So we got a double coming up next week. We got the finale of Loki and our review of the Marvels movie. So, yeah, again, pardon my yawning.
Better get rested up before next week.
Yeah, I know. I got to do a lot of things before next week.
Yeah,
but,
you guys have fun with that. I'm going to be snoozing next week.
But, yeah, please return. Please come back to check out those reviews. Follow us on social media at Royal Geek Pod. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And please share this podcast with your friends. With all that in mind, for my good friends Shamato and T Sweat, this is T Roll saying thank you so much for listening to the Royal Geek Podcast. We will see you next time, you peasants.